Hello and welcome to our little video presentation for the native plant sale. To help you decide which plant or plants you might want to purchase at our plant sale, members of the Clear Lake chapter of the Native Plant Society of Texas all recorded a little information about their favorite plants. And hopefully this little bit of information will allow you to choose plants from the sale that you might want to add to your own gardens.
All right, so I'm going to kick off the plant sale talk by talking about Texas bluebells. I'm only doing a couple of plants. My much more erudite colleagues will be taking over from me. And I particularly wanted to show this plant because we have never had it in our plant sale before. And we did get requests for it. And there were a lot of people saying, well, where do I buy Texas bluebells? I want Texas bluebells. And so we managed to find someone this year who had started off some seedlings. Thank you, Martha. She kindly donated some to us, and we have grown them to slightly bigger seedlings. And this is what they will look like when they are grown. They have annuals or perennials. The literature differs on how they behave. Most people consider them to be annuals. They have a very showy blue bloom in the summer months. That's July, August, September. It's got leaves that are waxy in appearance and almost succulent-like. And you can leave them, they will stay on through the summer, and then their seed heads will ripen. And you'll know the seeds are ripe because they will be dark black in color. And that's when you can either collect the seed or leave them to fall on the ground around, or perhaps do a little of both. And then you can cut back the flowering head and the plant will die back, and it may give you some new blooms around it, some new shoots over the winter, or the seeds will start to grow in the soil, and the next spring you'll have more flowers. It does say in the literature that the bluebells from the second season tend to be a lot harder than those from the first season and bloom much more readily. So what I suggest is you buy several of these, 3 or 5, plant them in your garden, leave a little space for them, and just allow them to reseed themselves year after year. And if you can collect some seeds along the way and give them to your neighbors or back to us so we can grow some more for next year, that would be very nice. This is a sun-loving plant. It does like moist soil. It likes to be well drained, moist soil, so a well-prepared garden bed is a good idea. If you're putting this in a prairie patch, perhaps on one of the better draining patches or a Mima mound patch, and you should get much pleasure from it. Okay, and then the next one I'm doing is Lindheimer Beebalm. This is in the Lamiaceae family, the mint family. It is got aromatic leaves and a square stem. And this is local to just Texas and Louisiana. So this is not found in the central part of Texas. It's local to the Gulf Coast region. It's very well adapted to our soils. It germinates very easily. And at the moment in the ground, the ones that are in the ground are just a seedling that is just a couple of inches tall, but within 6 weeks, this is what I expect them to look like, with multi-blooms, very pretty blooms, very beneficial for insects, especially bees. They're good nectar flowers. And as I said, the leaves are fragrant. They will die back over the winter, but they will send up new shoots, and any seeds that have fallen will actually reseed themselves very easily. It's an easy plant to collect seeds from. The seeds are teeny tiny. So again, you can do a bit of both. You can leave some to reseed themselves and collect some for germinating for friends or to donate to our plant sale.
I would like to highlight 2 plants from our plant sale that are deep freeze heroes. The first of which is Gulf Coast Penstemon. Gulf Coast Penstemon is a native to southeast Texas and winters as an evergreen rosette, hugging the ground during the dormant season. In February through March, depending on the weather, they began to grow upward, producing multiple flower stalks. Gulf Coast Penstemons light purple flowers appear in March through April. Although the flowers are small, there are many of them, usually on multiple flower spikes, giving the appearance of a cloud of blooms that last for several weeks. Sometimes Gulf Coast Penstemon flowers again in the fall, although the blooms are more limited. Flowering is followed by attractive, tough seed capsules containing many small seeds that stay on the plant through the winter unless cut off. Partial shade is best for Gulf Coast Penstemon, although it will tolerate full sun. It prefers moist soils and grows well in both moderately acidic and alkaline conditions. It will do well in seasonally poor drainage. Although Gulf Coast Penstemon is quite tolerant of dry conditions, it may be watered during extreme drought. During blooming, it serves as a nectar source for bees, insects, and butterflies, and attracts hummingbirds. It self-seeds, and after several years can form a mat that serves as a ground cover. Rough coneflower is the second freeze hero. Coneflowers generally have two genus names, Echinacea and Rudbeckia. The Echinacea genus is derived from the Greek echino, which means like a hedgehog or sea urchin, so the central disc is spiny. The ray petals are generally in shades of pink to purple. Rudbeckias are commonly known as brown or black-eyed Susans, Texas coneflower, and rough coneflower. The central disc is usually brown and with varying heights and shapes. The ray petals are commonly yellow. The only area I have seen a large swath of rough coneflower is the Lothar Deer Park Prairie, around the month of June when these photos were taken. A mature plant overwinters as a basal rosette and begins growing lettuce-like leaves in March, putting up multiple flower stalks. The plant is well-mannered and the size is generally no more than 2 to 2.5 feet tall. The single plant slowly increases by clumping and does not send out long rhizomes. Leaving flowers standing after they have gone to seed is a great way to feed birds. However, for some reason, we backyard gardeners learned someplace along the way to cut down flowers at the end of the growing season. Consequently, this form of bird feeding is not practiced in most backyards. The dried foliage helps protect the crown of the plant from frost and can be cut back in the spring when new foliage appears. Rough coneflower seeds attract goldfinches, chickadees, cardinals, nuthatches, and sparrows. This and other members of the Asteraceae family are the host plant for the silvery checker spot butterfly. So which plant do I have? Texas or rough coneflower? The two plants sitting side by side. One is Texas coneflower and one is rough coneflower. On initial observation, these two plants look alike, but by using your sense of touch, you can tell the difference. The Texas coneflower leaves are smooth, top and bottom, while the rough coneflower, true to its name, feels like a 24-hour beard growth. Look along the edge of the photo for evidence of a rough feel to the leaves of the plant. The two Latin words for this description are glabrous, from the Latin meaning smooth, and scabrous, from the Latin meaning rough. If those two words sound too much alike, just remember, when you fall down and skin your knee, you have a rough scab.
Hello, my name is Debbie, and I am going to be talking about American Basketflower. Centaurea americana. American basketflower is the only Centaurea native to North America. This erect annual can grow from 1.5 to 5 feet tall, depending on rainfall and soil type. It produces beautiful, delicate blooms from May to August. The large flower heads are 2 to 3 inches in diameter. Blooms have creamy centers ringed by lavender, pink, or purple petals. The name refers to the stiff, straw-colored bracts just beneath the flower head that look like a basket. Water use is low. Light requirement, partial sun. Soil moisture, dry to medium. Soil, sandy loam, clay loam, medium loam. Basketflower is easily propagated from seed in late summer through fall. The numerous large seeds can be harvested in early summer. Blooms of American basketflower provide high-quality nectar and pollen for a variety of wildlife, including hummingbirds, butterflies, moths, bees, beetles, and a host of other insects. Bumblebees are major visitors to basketflowers. Interestingly, stamens are reported to suddenly contract and push pollen onto a pollinator when they are touched. This true Texas native is planted for its showy blooms. It is great as a cut flower and is also suitable for dried flower arrangements. Basketflower has no known diseases or pests and appears tolerant of droughts, floods, and freezes. Enjoy!
Hello, my name is Susan Chambers, and I'm with the Clear Lake chapter of the Native Plant Society of Texas. Today I'd like to talk to you about two great plants for your yard, coral honeysuckle and Lyreleaf Sage. Lonicera sempervirens is a climbing evergreen vine. It usually reaches 15 to 20 feet. It has gorgeous, bright red trumpet flowers with a yellow inside. It grows in sun to part shade, but will bloom better with more sun. It likes moist, rich soil, but grows in a wide variety of soils. It is cold tolerant. I had buds before the winter storm, which are now in bloom. The vine stayed evergreen. Coral honeysuckle attracts hummingbirds, other birds, bees, butterflies, and moths. It blooms in spring and continues to bloom intermittently throughout the year. Coral honeysuckle needs a trellis, arbor, or fence to twine around, or you could use it as a ground cover. Please add this vine to your wildflower collection. Salvia lyrata is another easy-to-grow perennial wildflower. It is a rosette at the base with green leaves. In the winter, the leaves develop dark purple veins. The flowers are lavender on an upright stem. Lyreleaf sage is not picky about light. It will grow in sun, part shade, and shade. It is also not picky about soil. This salvia has low to medium water requirements. However, it can tolerate periodic flooding and overwatering, as well as drought. This plant, too, is liked by hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies. Lyreleaf sage can be used as a ground cover. You can walk on it and even mow it. Cut flower stems off after they have gone to seed. I like to use Salvia lyrata for a border. It easily spreads by seed in loose soil and some water. Plenty available at the sale today.
Blackeyed Susan. Blackeyed Susan is an annual that grows to be 1 to 2 feet tall. It contributes bright yellow flowers to the prairie or gardens. The seeds can be sown in the fall or spring. The spent seed heads can be left for the birds or left to drop to the ground and reseed. The Blackeyed Susan is the larval host of the bordered patch butterfly.
Fall obedient plant is a 2 to 4 foot sun to part sun perennial. It has pink or purple blooms in August through October on tall spikes. The blossoms last a long time, and the flowers can be moved and will stay obediently where they're placed. They will spread aggressively, but they can be used as a tall ground cover, and they're easy to dig new plants in spring if you want to contain them. They attract nectarine, hummingbirds, and butterflies.
Talking now about Mexican hat, also known as upright prairie coneflower, Latin name Ratibida columnifera. One of my favorite wildflowers for sure. Comes in so many different color patterns and variations. I don't think any two are alike. And it's easy to grow. Very adaptable to just about any type soil as long as you have good drainage, well drained. Average moisture is the only requirement, and it can withstand some drought. It will even flower in a drought. The flowers may be smaller, but it's quite drought tolerant. Height 1 to 3 feet and about 18 inches wide. Partial to full sun. Blooms a little bit better with the full sun. Bloom color yellow, red, brown, rust to burgundy. Very long bloom time, March to November. It's a favorite with butterflies and bees both for nectaring. Propagation is from seed, and if you look at the distribution map, has a very, very wide distribution. So it's a very adaptable plant. The foliage is quite ferny looking, so it does well in a mass planting. And if you want to collect seeds from your Mexican hat to propagate and start some more, it's very, very easy. The entire top part of the flower, once it dries, becomes the seed head. You just wait till it dries out, you crumple it, and it breaks down into the individual seeds, and you can plant some more of your very special Mexican. Talking about Eastern False Aloe, another common name, American Aloe, Latin name, Manfreda virginica, one of my favorite specimen type plants in a landscape. First look, it appears to be a desert southwest plant, but this is one of our coastal prairie native plants. Different forms, you can see it the green form and you see in the right, or oftentimes it will develop these kind of burgundy freckles, and this is one on the left that I grew from seed. A really cute and interesting plant for your landscape, and easy to grow. So it's adaptable to almost any type of soil, but it must be well drained. As far as moisture, it is not a desert southwest plant, so it doesn't like to be extremely dry, but it likes low to average moisture. So you don't have to water it very often, but you don't want it to get extremely dry. Height, the plant itself, maybe about 12 inches tall. I've seen here in the prairies, a little bit wider than that maybe. But when it comes time for it to bloom, the bloom stalk can be 4 to 7 feet. And I've even had one in a small pot that the bloom stalk was almost 7 feet tall. And I've got photos of those in a minute. Light requirement, partial to full sun, so easy there. Bloom color, the bloom is kind of a white, greenish white, but it's an insignificant bloom, but very fragrant. And it's pollinated day and night, at night by sphinx moths, and during the day mostly by bumblebees, so we'll attract some interesting insects. Blooms May to August, can propagate from seed or pups. If you can see in the distribution map where it's found in our area, but definitely not in the desert southwest. Photos of the bloom stalk. You can see on the left how significant and how tall the bloom stalks are. And then on the right, you can see the flowers. Not beautiful, attractive flowers, but as I said, very, very fragrant. When the bloom stalk dies, you'll be left with these seed pods, as you can see in the left-hand picture. And inside those will be the little seeds from the Manfreda virginica. On the right-hand side, they're pretty easy to grow from seed. Last thing I would like to say about this plant, if you want to plant in the landscape, it does not like to be very crowded. It likes to have a little bit of its own space, but other than that, an easy to grow, wonderful plant.
Inland sea oats grows 2 to 4 feet tall and is a rare shade-tolerant native grass. It is easily recognizable for its lovely, drooping, wheat-like seed heads, visible from midsummer to October. It makes a good ground cover or understory plant that can be cut back in February. Be aware that its seeds are very fertile and spread aggressively. The seeds are beneficial for wildlife, and this perennial grass is a larval host for skippers. The seed stalks also make impressive flower arrangements.
Lanceleaf Blanketflower, Gaillardia aestivalis. This is a very showy, prolific bloomer. The deep purple center is quite striking, and note the petals, red towards the center with the yellow borders around the outside. This is known as a perennial, maybe a short-lived perennial, and or an annual. It blooms from May through September, about 18 inches tall, blooms in sun and part shade. You notice there it's growing on my patio. It's kind of set its roots down through between the paver blocks. It's very easy to grow and has special value to native bees. There is another Astivala, or Gaillardia, which is Gaillardia pucella, and often called the fire wheel, and that is also a good one for growing. This one is Gaillardia astivalis, Lanceleaf Blanketflower, swamp sunflower, Helianthus angustifolius. This plant, as you see, yellow with a dark center, is very happy wherever it ends up. It's also called swamp sunflower or narrow-leaf sunflower. Note the plants on the left which are growing in my yard. This is the new ones just coming up a week or so ago, after the freeze. They do have narrow leaves, and the leaves are very rough underneath. So if you want to identify the plant, just feel the leaf and you will recognize that it is rough. It's a perennial. It will self-seed, 1 to 3 feet tall. The more sun it's in, the more blooms you will get. It likes clay or poor drainage. So I'm sure there's somewhere in your yard this would work. But it does not need to have swamp land. It can be in an area that maybe fills with moisture when it rains, but drains off. It's good with the butterflies and the bees. It is swamp sunflower, Helianthus angustifolius. Missouri ironweed, Vernonia missourica. A beautiful plant in the fall. They said it's purple. I would call it magenta blossoms. The plant grows about 1 to 3 feet tall. If you find that's too tall, midsummer you can always cut it back a bit and it will set out new blossoms. It's very easy to live with. Blooms from July through October. It's a perennial. It can stand some drought. It is one of the many hosts for the painted lady butterfly and attracts a large number of native bees. It's fun to watch. You note there, I also enjoy the seed heads and have cut several branches and have a dried arrangement to enjoy. Great plant. Missouri ironweed, Vernonia missourica.
Showy goldenrod, Solidago speciosa. This Texas native blooms late summer into fall. Their blooms are showy clusters of bright, tiny yellow flowers. It thrives in sunny, well-drained, sandy or loamy soils and partial to full sun. This perennial grows 3 to 5 feet high with a spread of 2 to 3 feet. Plants spread at a moderate rate from underground rhizomes. Flowers are attractive to butterflies, bees, and other pollinators. Texas coneflower, Rudbeckia texana. This Texas native produces 3 to 5 inch yellow blooms between June and October. The flowers have a conical shape, yellow florets circling a dark brown dome-shaped cone. They grow in average to moist soil and partial to full sun. This perennial grows 3 to 4 feet high. A good nectar and pollen source for pollinators.
The spider lily is a 1 to 2 foot tall, part sun shade, deciduous or dormant in the fall to winter. Has fragrant white blooms up to 7 inches across. The blooms look like a cup with straps. The leaves are strap-like, narrower than crinum lily leaves, and it likes to grow in poorly drained area, prefers wet. The bloom will set 3 large acorn-sized seeds which fall to the ground and begin their growth. These large seeds can be harvested when mature, laid on top of the ground, and they'll soon send out a white root, and it grows a new plant. The Turks Cap is a 3 to 5 foot, sun to part shade semi-evergreen. Has bright red blooms from spring to fall. Blooms better in the sun, also a red button-like fruit. Very adaptive to a wide variety of habitats and spreads easily. If it has any winter kill, cut the dead wood back in spring or cut to maintain a smaller size and shape. Hummingbirds and butterflies are attracted like a magnet. Larval host for white skipper and scrub hairstreak. Red fruit in fall enjoyed by wildlife.
Virginia sweetspire is a creeping shrub that grows 3 to 8 feet tall and produces 4-inch white drooping spires in the spring. Because of its thicket-forming manner, this shrub is excellent for colonizing slopes and protecting against erosion. While it can be lightly pruned, it is not appropriate as a boxy hedge. Virginia sweetspire has fall color, and the leaves may stay on through most of the winter.
Wine cup. Wine cups like sun to part shade. Their flower contains 5 wine-colored petals, forming cup-shaped flowers with a white throat. They bloom in spring and go dormant in the heat of summer. They are the larval host for the gray hairstreak butterfly.
Purple coneflower in the genus Echinacea. Purple coneflowers are native to the eastern United States and are mainly found in prairies and open woodlands. This photo is of a prairie in Arkansas and is of the species Echinacea sanguinea, which can be found in sandy soils from Bastrop throughout East Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. The species we have for sale is Echinacea purpura. Purple coneflower are commonly available in the nursery trade, and they have been planted extensively across the state. They're an ideal plant for many flower gardens as they are easy to grow and are quite beautiful. Purple coneflower is a perennial plant, growing 2 to 5 feet tall. The bloom time is April to September. They grow best in the sun or part shade and in well-drained, sandy, loamy soils. They make an excellent border plant. Purple coneflowers attract bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds while blooming, and if you leave the dead flower heads on in the winter, you are sure to attract goldfinch and other seed-eating birds. Coral bean, whose scientific name is Erythema herbacea, is found in the pea family. It's a glossy-leaved, thorny shrub that usually dies back in the winter but reemerges in the spring from its perennial root. It has scarlet red flowers that attract hummingbirds, and the flower stalk is approximately 12 inches long. It blooms from March to October. After it finishes blooming, it makes a pod with bright red seeds or beans. These bright red seeds are held within the split open pod for most of the winter, and they're very attractive. Some people use the seed pods in flower arrangements. But if you do this, you must keep in mind and be careful because the seeds are highly toxic. The plant is easily grown from the seeds as long as you scarify them by making a nick in the tough outer seed coat. Coral bean likes sun to part shade and is a prairie and a savanna species. It grows in thickets on Galveston Island. It also likes sand or sandy loam soil. Rosinweed in the genus Silphium are found in prairies east of the Rocky Mountains, including Texas. Silphium is the ancient name of a resinous plant. It was given to this group of plants because of their pine-scented resinous sap. The hardened sap can be chewed like gum. I have read that it has an odd pine resin taste that is pleasant enough, but must be firmed up before chewing. These tall, sturdy members of the aster family are perennial plants with sandpaper-like leaves. The blooms remind us of sunflowers. The plants are able to tolerate a variety of soils, and they prefer full sun. The species we have for sale have been grown from seeds collected from our local prairies. Rosinweed hold their seeds attached to the sepals, kind of at the bottom of the flower. The seeds are fairly large, and they're a very important food source for small mammals, birds, and insects. Rosinweed is a valuable keystone prairie plant and can have a taproot up to 15 feet long depending on the species. A quote by Aldo Leopold from the Sand County Almanac describes this in detail. He says, "Silphium first became a personality to me when I tried to dig one up and move it to my farm. It was like digging an oak sapling. After a half an hour of hot, grimy labor, the root was still enlarging, like a great vertical sweet potato." As we can see from this report, the taproot makes Silphium a hardy and drought-resistant plant for our local gardens.
Thanks for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and it helps you decide on a few plants that you want to purchase at the plant sale tomorrow. Thanks, and we'll see you at the plant sale.